Hey guys, it's Miss Bailey, and today is Wednesday, April the 8th. It's about 1:30 p.m. and it was good seeing everybody on our Zoom chat today. And we'll do another one not next week. Next Wednesday is the 15th. That's actually Jonathan's birthday. So happy birthday early, Jonathan. But the following week is the 22nd. So next week we'll be on spring break. So no Zoom chat, but then the following week we'll have another Zoom chat. So on your lesson plan, which was emailed to your parents for today for math, our lesson was to add and subtract decimals. We're supposed to be estimating as well as finding the actual solution. And we're going to be using models. So by models, I just mean pictures. And in this case, it's going to be the what we thought previously as the 100 block, but that's just going to represent one whole with decimals. Okay. And the little picture here, the calculator with the line through it, should not be using a calculator unless you have that accommodation, which for our class is Noah and Cameron. However, I would like for you to try it without the calculator, okay, and do it. I'm going to help you through that so you can do it with me. Okay, so for this lesson, this block represents just one whole, the whole number 1, not 100. But we know the whole number 1 can be divided up into smaller pieces, and anything less than one whole would be a fraction or a decimal, or a whole number would be a fraction or a decimal. So for the first one, I'm going to actually need to shade the models in for you. Now just keep in mind that when we're finding the sum, we're talking about adding, and the difference is subtracting. So the operation for difference, when you see that word difference, is subtracting. And you got to be careful with the signs because they can change. And so you don't want to do the wrong operation because that will get you the wrong answer. Okay, so for the number 1, this is one whole, and we're going to be adding some amount to some other amount. So I'm going to shade those in for you. I guess I'll use a highlighter, and I'll use, what mood am I in today? We'll use orange. Okay, so I'm going to shade this block right here. That in. You can color this at home with me. You can just use your pencil. You don't have to use colors. Ooh, too far. All right, let me erase that. Okay, so I've shaded one block, and I'm going to shade another one. Hopefully this time I do a lot better with my coloring. I'm doing it quickly, so if you're doing it at home, you can pause the video if you need to. I did better with that one. Okay, and on the last block, let's see, I really should have scrolled down a little bit. Yeah. Move that back up. Move that back up. Okay. And I will shade in. Okay, not done yet. Okay. There we go. All right, and over here, I'll use a different color. going to add to that. Oh, there's Luna. All right, I've got one whole. And let's add 1, 2. There we go. Okay. All right. So first thing we need to do is we've shaded these models. We've got to figure out, how much did I actually shade? What are we going to be adding? All right. So we know that we've got one hole, 2 holes, and then we got to figure out what my decimal part is. So I have 1 hole, 2 holes, but this does not quite make 3 holes, right? So got 2 and Luna. Sorry, my dog's barking. I've got 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and then how many hundredths? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I've got 2 and 54 hundredths. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And my number over here, I've got 1 hole. And how many tenths do I have? 1 strip, 2 strips, that's 2/10. And 1, 2, 3 hundredths. All right. So I've got 2 and 54 hundredths, and I'm going to add 1 and 23 hundredths. Okay. So we know we're going to be estimating. All right. So estimating is basically like rounding. We're trying to find an about, a close amount, not an exact amount. So if you're thinking in terms of money and you were going to the store and you had to buy one thing that was going to be $2.54, and you're going to buy another thing that's going to be $1.23, then we just got to figure out about how much money we need, because your parents may not give you the exact change, right? Okay. So I'm going to erase these. We've got 2 and 54 hundredths, 1 and 23 hundredths. And then we're going to go down and estimate. So I am going to write those down so I don't forget those numbers. So I've got 2 and 54 plus 1 and 23. Okay. Alrighty. So let me erase this. Clear. Go. Okay. All right. So my estimate, we have 2 and 54 hundredths. So if I'm going to round to the whole number, I have a 5 in my tenths place. 5 or more raise the score. So my estimate for 2 and 54 hundredths, it's close to, and we can write this down if you want. Here, I'll write it down. 2 and 54 hundredths. Okay, if I'm rounding to the whole number, if I'm rounding to this place right here, I need to look next door. And it can tell the 2 to stay a 2, or it can tell the 2 to go up to a 3. So remember, 4 or less, we're going to let it rest, but 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. So this is approximately, I'm going to do a squiggly equals, because that means about 3. So I know that that's not an equal sign. Oops, that's an approximation. That looks terrible. Okay. All right, squiggly equals. Okay. My other number was 1 and 23 hundredths, so I'm adding to that 1 and 23 hundredths. Okay, again, I'm estimating, so I'm going to round to my whole number, my ones place, but I'm going to look next door, and it can either tell the 1 to rest, let it rest, or raise the score to a 2. Well, this is 4 or less because 2 is less than 4 or less. So we're going to let 1 rest. So it will be a 1. 2 and 23 hundredths is approximately, which means not exactly, but it's approximately 1. Okay, now I'm going to add 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, I know this is a little bit messy. It's best I got here on the screen. So now I'm going to find my actual solution. Okay, we're going to see if my estimate is close to the actual solution, or actually I should say if my solution is close to the estimate. And that's why we use estimates a lot, kind of doing mental math. Eventually we want to get to the point where we can almost estimate in our head. And then when we want to find our solution, we're going to compare that to our mental estimate to see if we probably got the right answer, if our actual solution when we work it out is close to our mental estimate. Okay, so remember when we're adding decimals, we have to line up the decimal places. So 2 and 54 hundredths plus 1 and 23 hundredths. Remember when we're adding decimals, we just add them the same way we would add whole numbers, except that our decimals have to be lined up one on top of the other. All right, so I'm going to have 4 plus 3 is 7. 5 plus 2 is 7. And 2 plus 1 is 3. And then I always want to bring down my decimal in the exact same place, so they all should be lined up vertically, which means one on top of the other. Okay, so my actual solution is 3 and 77 hundredths, which is close to 4. So if you were going to the store and you wanted to buy something and it was $3.77, you would say, okay, I need about $4. It's going to cost about $4. All right, so that checks. Okay, so that's 1. I'm going to erase this now. And I think I'm going to change my zoom a little bit and make it a little bit smaller. So bear with me a second. Yeah, I want it bigger than that. So let's see. Make it bigger than 100, but smaller than what it was so that we can see a little bit more. Let's try that. Okay. Scroll down. Okay, once again, this picture represents not 100 anymore. It just represents the whole number 1. So 1 can be broken down into smaller pieces, and we call those decimals. So in between the whole number 1 and the whole number 2, there are infinitely many numbers of decimals in between those two numbers. But for our grade level, we generally deal with the tenths place, the hundredths place, and the thousandths place. But these examples will all have just tenths and hundredths, okay? So this represents the whole number 1, and we're going to be adding these two numbers, 2 and 27 hundredths plus 64 hundredths. Or you can say 0 and 64 hundredths. They're the same. Means the same thing. Okay. So we have models here to help you. You can shade those in. You can pause the video and try to shade those in according to these numbers, 2 and 27 hundredths plus 0 and 64 hundredths. Okay. So if you want to pause it and shade them in, you can, but I'll go ahead and do that now. And we'll try red. So I've got 1, and 2. What are you shushing?
Are you done?
No, I'm not shushing. I'm not done.
Okay, jeez. Don't yell at me. Go on, Mom. It's not good enough.
That's Larry and Luna. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, and 27 hundredths. Make this a little bit smaller so that I can be a little more precise with my shading. There's 2/10. And now I need 7 hundredths. Okay. So that's 2 and 27 hundredths. And this is 0 and 64 hundredths. So I'm not going to have one whole of these shaded in. But let's try green. All right. So I need 64 hundredths. That is 6/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 64 hundredths is 6/10 plus 4 more hundredths. So there's my 6/10. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I went too far. Erase. I only needed 4. Okay. All right. Okay, so there's my 64 hundredths. Okay, now I need to estimate first. So let me scroll down. And then I'm just going to move this to the bottom one so we can see it better. All right. So my numbers, 2 and 27 hundredths. If I'm rounding to the whole number, so 2, 27. Okay. So my whole number is here. And I need to draw my arrow next to it. And I have to ask myself, okay, is this 5 or more? Do I raise the score to a 3? Or is it 2 or less? Do I let this rest as a 2? So, being that 2 is 4 or less than 4, I'm going to let the 2 rest, and it is approximately 2. Okay, and then I need to add to that. So when I scroll down, this is all going to get messed up. Let's see if I can move all this. Can I move this? No, it's not going to let me move it. All right. So I'm going to erase all that. Clear 2 and 27 hundredths with approximately 2. And I'm going to add to that 64 hundredths. Now I can write the 0 here in the ones place. But remember, I have to keep my decimals lined up. All right, so if I'm rounding though to the whole numbers, I'm rounding to the whole numbers here. There's a 0 there, but I have to look next door. And if that number next door is 5 or more, I raise the score to a 1. If it's 4 or less, I'm going to let the 0 rest. Of course, 6 is 5 or more than 5. It's more than 5. So it says for the 0 to go up to 1. Okay. He already went upstairs to lay down. Okay, see you later. Okay, so I've got a 2 plus 1, sorry, will be 3. So my estimate is 3. Now I'm going to go over and find my solution to see if it's the actual solution. Okay, so I've got 2 and 27 hundredths. And I'm going to add 0 and 64 hundredths. And remember, we add just like we would with whole numbers, except we have to keep those decimals lined up vertically. Means up and down, one on top of the other. So I've got 7 plus 4 is 11. I'm going to bring my 1 down and bring my 1 up to the tenths place. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. There's nothing to carry here. And 2 plus 0 is 2. All right, 2 and 91 hundredths is my actual answer. But that's pretty close to 3. So again, if you think about it as money, if you're going to buy something that's $2.91, then it's about $3. So our solution is close to our estimate. All right, so we're going to erase that. And we're going to scroll down again. And once again, this block represents 1, but watch the sign. Notice that this time we're doing a subtraction. Okay. And I'm actually going to change this problem. And so when I send you the copy in the video, your copy will be the same as this one. So it's changed a little bit. So I'll save it later. Okay. So we're going to go with 2 and 4 hundredths minus 1 and 3 tenths. Okay. And you might see why I did that, because I wanted everything to kind of line up just right. So, or not line up, I guess, so I can make sure that we're lining up our decimals. So let me go ahead and shade. I'll use pink. So I'll get the highlighter, pink. And so I've got 1 whole block. You can shade this with me. Okay. 2 whole blocks. All right. And then 400ths, which is just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then I'm taking away 1 3/10. Use blue. So I'm going to have 1 whole block. And then how much should I shade for 3/10? Is that going to be 3 little squares? Or is 3/10 going to be 3 whole strips? Okay, so 3/10 is a whole strip. 3 strips. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And again, if you guys want to do it in color on Seesaw, I think you have the option to do that. If you want to do it in the Google Classroom and just do it, as a document, you can do it that way and then post it on the Google Classroom. It's up to you. All right, so here I've shaded my 2 400ths, and I'm taking away, remember we're subtracting 1 3/10, and I've got my model set up. Now another way to think about this, if I wanted to, when I think I'm subtracting, so if I'm taking away this amount from this amount, you can visually do that. So if I want to take away this amount from here, so let's just say I'm going to take away 1 whole from here. So I'm going to take away, I'll just cross this 1 whole from here. And if I'm going to take away 3/10 here, I could take away 3/10 here. And then you could just count up what's not been crossed out. That's one way to do it without actually doing the math, just doing it visually using the models. But I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to estimate 2 400ths and 1 3/10, and then find the actual answer. Okay. But you could use the models and do it this way. Okay, let me clear that out. Get the pointer. Go down a little bit. Okay, so too far. Okay, 2 400ths. Except I don't want the big giant. Okay. So remember, I'm estimating to the whole number. So I'm going to underline the number in the ones place, but I got to look next door. If the number next door is 5 or more, I'm going to raise the score to a 3. If it's 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest as a 2. So 0 is 4 or less than 4. So I'm going to let the 2 rest. So my estimate, and that little squiggly equals means approximate. 2 400ths is approximately 2. All right, then my other one was 1 3/10. So I'm taking away, this time subtracting, finding the difference, 1 3/10. Remember, I'm going to line those decimals up vertically, which means up and down. And so I'm going to just put a 0 here to hold that place value in the hundredths place. Okay, but again, I'm rounding to the whole number. So I'm going to look next door. If this is 5 or more, I raise the score. This 1 goes up to 2. Or if it's 4 or less than 4, I'm going to let this rest. A 1 rests as a 1. So 1 3/10 or 30 hundredths, they're both equal, is going to be approximately just 1. And remember, I'm subtracting, not adding. So pay close attention to what operation you're doing, because sometimes you might see something with mixed operations. And so if you get in the habit of just adding, you're going to make a mistake. So 2 subtract 1, or 2 minus 1, or I have 2 and I'm going to take away 1. I'm left with just 1. Okay. Now let's find our actual solution to see if it's close to my estimate. So I have 2 and 4 hundredths. And I'm going to subtract 1 3/10. 1 3/10. Okay, am I good? Am I ready to go? Wrong. Can't subtract that way, right? I cannot subtract like this because my decimals are not lined up vertically. This does not belong here, it belongs over there. So I'm going to erase that. That would not get me the right answer. And I have to keep my decimals lined up and all my place values lined up vertically. So I'm going to put my decimal right below that one. I have a 1 in my ones place, a 3 in my tenths place, and nothing in the hundredths place. So I can put a 0 there to hold that place. All right, now I'm ready to subtract. I've got my decimals lined up vertically, up and down, one on top of the other. If I had put my decimal over here, that would not have gotten me the right answer. All right, so now I'm going to do 4 minus 0 is 4. 0 minus 3, can't take 3 away from nothing. I don't have enough here, so I'm going to need to borrow from that 2. I'm going to borrow from that 2, make 2 a 1, but I'm going to bring that 1 that I took from over here and bring it right there. Now I got a 10. Okay, I can take 3 away from 10, make it a 7. And 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, so my final actual solution is 0 and 74 hundredths. Okay, and that is pretty close to 1. So if this was money and you were going to the store and you needed to buy something that was 74 cents, it's about $1. You're going to get, a quarter and a penny back as change, but it's about $1. All right, so I'm going to erase that. Oop, no, I'm going to clear all the, and then we're going to scroll down to our last problem. And this one, I am going to change as well. So, all right, we're going to have 1 8/10 here, and we're going to take away 73 hundredths. So it's going to be a little bit challenging. I want you to just think about that, and I want you to try to work it out on your own. So without me shading without me helping you. So I want you to come up with an estimate. 1 8/10 minus 73 hundredths. Right? So go ahead and pause the video, work this out, and then you can come back and check your answer, compare it with what I got, and see if you, it's how you'll know if you understand instead of, it's easy to do it when you're watching me. This is true of math a lot. You're watching somebody else and you're like, yeah, I got this. I know how to do it. And then when you try to do it independently, it's a little bit harder. So try this one on your own to make sure you're understanding, and then we'll come back and check it. Right? Well, okay, so you should have paused the video. Hopefully you've had time to work this out, but I will go ahead and shade. I haven't done yellow yet. So 1 8/10, that means one whole block. Okay, and then 8/10 doesn't mean 8 little squares. That means 8 strips. So I'm going to go all the way over here and shade that in. 1 8/10, and I'm going to subtract or take away from that 73 hundredths. So that means, and I'm going to make this smaller. I've got 7 of these. Strips, because I have 7/10. All right. And then 3 hundredths, which means 1, 2, 3 little squares. All right. You guys get the idea. Okay, so all right, I've got it shaded. And now I'm going to estimate, and then I'm going to actually find the answer. All right. Okay. All right, so 1 8/10. I'm going to estimate that, rounding it to the whole number place, or the ones place. So I have a 1 in the ones place. If I look next door, the number next to it, if it's 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. 1 goes up to 2. If it's 4 or less, we're going to let 1 rest. 1 stays a 1. So because 8 is 5 or more than 5, because it's more than 5, 5 or more, we raise the score. So 1 8/10 is approximately, and that squiggly equals means about, almost 2. And then I had 73 hundredths. So that's decimal 7, 3. 73 hundredths. Now you can put the 0 there in the ones place. There, that means the same thing. That means I have no ones in 73 hundredths. I want you to get used to seeing it both ways. So I'm not going to put the 0 there in the ones place for right now. But I'm rounding to the whole number 1. So I'm rounding to this place right here. So I will put the 0 there then, just so we know that's the place we're rounding to. But I have to look next door. Okay, there's a 7 next to the 0. Is that 7 5 or more? Do we raise the score? 0 goes up to 1. Or is that 7 4 or less? We let 0 rest. 0 stays a 0. Well, 7 is more than 5. So this number right here with the arrow is 5 or more. We're going to raise the score. 0 goes up to a 1. And remember, I'm subtracting, taking away. So 2 minus 1 is 1. This is my estimate. Now I'm going to find my solution. So I have 1 and 8/10. And I'm going to subtract 73/100. Okay, am I good? Ready to subtract? What's wrong with this picture? My decimals are not lined up. So I have 1 here and 1 over here. We need to keep everything lined up vertically, one on top of the other. So let me erase that, because this would not get me the right answer. And let me try that again. I'm going to put my decimal right below the other one. 73/100. Now that looks weird because we got a number here and a number here and nothing here or here. Well, you can put a 0 here at the end of this to hold that place. We haven't changed the value, because 1 80/100 is equivalent to 1 8/10. So I'll put a 0 there. And I can also put a 0 here if I want in my ones place, because I have 0 1s and 73/100. Okay, now I'm ready to subtract. So this is going to require some regrouping or borrowing, because I cannot take 3 away from nothing. There's nothing there to take from. So I'm going to have to borrow. Go over here. And I'm going to borrow from that 8 and make it a 7. Took 1 away from here, so I'm going to bring that 1 over here. Now I have 10 here. I can take 3 away from 10. So 10 minus 3 is 7. 7 minus 7 is 0. Decimal, decimal, bring my decimal down. And 1 minus 0 is 1. All right, and there is my actual solution, 1 7/100, which is pretty close to 1. If we were rounding, it would round to the whole number 1. But if it was money and you had to go buy something, of course, you would need more than $1.07. $1 would not be enough. So it's a little bit different with real life practical problems with money, because you have to have more money than what something costs. But if we're just rounding, 1 7/100 would round to the whole number 1, because it's closer to 1 whole dollar than 2 whole dollars. But again, with money, you would have to have a little bit more, because the store's not going to, just say, okay, go ahead and take it. You got enough money. No. So it doesn't work like that, unfortunately, with money. All right. So that is adding and subtracting decimals. And we used models. Keep in mind, if you're using a calculator, it might seem like, oh, it's simple. I just, punch my numbers into the calculator. You got to be careful when you're putting them in that you put the decimal in the right place. Like if you're entering 0 and 73/100, you have to enter the 0 decimal 73. But we still have to know, now if you are using a calculator, some problems are going to give you just the model. And what I mean by that is, like our first example here, they didn't give you the numbers. I shaded them in, but you may have examples where it's just shaded and they're not giving you the numbers. So you're going to need to know what those models represent and what numbers to put into the calculator. Okay, so that's one thing. Even with the calculator, you have to know that what the model means and how to change that picture into an actual number to enter into your calculator. The other thing with the calculator is that it's not going to estimate for you. So when you have estimation problems, calculator is only going to help but so much. You're still going to have to know how to do this. Basically, the calculator is more of a just like, let me check my work. So, please don't think that the calculator is just something that, is going to, you don't really have to practice this, because you're still going to need to practice it. And the other thing is, if you don't have that accommodation, don't use the calculator, because when it comes to any type of assessment, you're not going to be able to use it. And we know that next year, going into your next grade, they're going to expect you to know how to do this. So, I won't be able to tell if you are or you aren't, except that you're only, not helping yourselves if you're using the calculator. Okay, so make sure you're doing the work, figuring it out on your own, and then I'll follow up with some IXL or MobiMax practice for you to work on to practice these skills. Again, when you complete this, you can send it back. So you're watching the video, but you should be completing yours. Send it back either on Seesaw or on the Google Classroom. All right. Thanks, guys. Take care, and I will see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.